Adventure in Pipeman on W4CY Radio.
Wake up, America! It's time for the Adventures of Pipeman on W4CY.com, West Palm Beach's #1 internet radio station. Here's your host, the Pipeman.
You have questions for me?
Yeah, we're just going to talk shit a little bit.
Cool.
Give me a quick synopsis of your day when you get to the venue.
Okay. Like a serious, not lying, like what my day consists of, what I do.
Yeah.
This world that we're touring in is this little bubble. We can do whatever we want, and there's lots of times where we did.
The touring world went from a bunch of outlaws to totally professional.
Everybody's replaceable in this business unless your name's on the ticket.
Sex, drugs, sex.
When people go, oh, you're a roadie, I go, yes, but it's not quite what you think it is.
They don't get the glory, but these shows wouldn't happen without these guys.
This is Pipeman here on the Adventures of Pipeman, W4CY Radio. And I'm very excited about the next guest for many reasons, but one of the biggest reasons is I got this email about the documentary, and I was like, now that's an interview I want to do, because that's got to have some really cool stories, because if you're going to get the best stories, it's going to be from the roadies. So let's welcome to the show TJ Hoffman, and let's talk about your documentary, or my documentary, but it's yours, so it's not mine.
Hello. How you doing today, Piper?
Hey, how's it going?
Awesome, thanks.
So, first of all, tell me how the first time you ever roadied, how did that happen?
Oh, geez. It was kind of more or less some friends of mine were working for a local band in Jersey, and there was a club. Actually, a couple clubs at the time, but they had a lot of gear. They had like double Marshall stacks, big refrigerator cases, and they needed help getting the gear up the steps. So more or less was, Teach, can you come help us lug these things up the steps, muscle them up, and you get to drink for free. And then after the show, just help us carry it down. And it was a pretty decent club. It was 80s. It was hair bands. It was a lot of girls and free beer. And I was in.
So I'm a Jersey boy. Which club was it?
So it was a club called Sneakers back in the day.
I remember that.
North Jersey. And then that led to like Studio One, Cricket Club, Birch Hill, Club Benet. It was the whole, East Coast, Central Jersey circuit at the time.
So here's a trip. Okay. So I was born in New York, grew up in Jersey till 1980 when I was about to enter high school. And my dad comes to me and goes, pack your bags. We're moving to California in 3 days. And so we did. And then funny, after high school, I went back to Jersey to go to Rutgers, and because I miss Jersey. And then I'm manager of this place on Route 9 called Harrow's. And so, yes, I'm very familiar with the whole Old Bridge scene there too. But it's interesting because for me, what happened to me was the first show I ever went to in a club in my life was at the Roxy on the Sunset Strip. Had to be 80, maybe 81, and it was Motley Crue.
Wow.
Before they had an album. There wasn't even an album yet.
Cool.
And I remember going into this club to watch this show, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm never going to a real concert ever again. This is the best shit ever.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you walked out of that club, and you walked up with them like a whole entourage of the fans that were there, and you went up to the Rainbow. And I was like, I don't know, 13, 14. And and I'm hanging out at the Rainbow with Motley Crue and with Lemmy and Ron Jeremy.
Yeah.
And as you can imagine, the women that were in that night.
Absolutely. So the Sunset Strip for me, you know, ironically, there's a club, the Roxy, in New Brunswick.
That's true.
And I went to high school in New Brunswick, and one of my first shows that I paid attention to and really got into it was Billy Idol, and it was at this Rutgers Student Center, and I believe that was 85 or 86, and that was my first shock to, wow, this is pretty fucking cool,
right? And then, as you know, and maybe a lot of people don't know that are listening or watching, like, I ended up after that show, like going to Sunset Strip all the time, or the Troubadour, or the Country Club in Reseda, and I would just like offer to help and be roadie, just to be there and go backstage, and there's so many things that I probably don't remember, because you know what they say, if you were in the Sunset Strip in the 80s, you know, and you remember it, you weren't really there.
Right.
It was like, you know, it was so cool. I went to Metallica, one of their first shows ever in LA, like probably their first like real show ever. Same with Slayer, but the Metallica one sits out in my mind. I've told this story before, but I think it's very apropos for this. So I'm sitting out there, and the guitarist gets off stage after playing and comes up to me, introduces himself, and starts talking to me and hands me his business card. And it said, Metallica Power Metal Dave Mustaine. And then next thing I knew, me and all my friends were headbanging to Whiplash at their house and partying all night long.
Awesome. That's a great story.
You know?
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure you have 10 million stories. That's why I wanted to do this interview, because the roadies definitely have the stories. And then the whole journey of your whole career to this day, and then to come out with this documentary, I think it's amazing.
No, I appreciate that. You know, it started as a more or less an unscripted type of series that we were pitching in the LA scene, going back 15 years or so ago already. And music, television, legal, licensing, the whole thing kind of would bang heads constantly. And I had a shelf that idea for a little while. And in the meantime, I decided, if all the footage and all the work and money that I put into it, I just started to build the documentary. And what I wanted to do was paint a picture. I was kind of want to be that Michael Moore type of investigative guy that goes to a venue and come follow me and let's go see what's going on, you know, peek behind the curtain. And as my interviews progressed and the story evolved, and my story, a lot of my footage that I had from the 80s and 90s were placeholders as we were, you know, building the timeline of the film.
Yeah.
And my producer, my editor, Andy Stroll, and a couple other guys saw it and said, this is the way to go, you know, more TJ in the story. And I didn't want that at all. So it evolved to what is now my documentary, which, you know, as you know, in the film business, other things take lefts and right turns constantly.
Yeah.
Just like the music business does. And this is the best that I could do at the time with what I have. And that's it.
And, you know, I got to say, like, one of the things I thought was really cool, because it is like that, like, unlike the debauchery that I experienced when I was a teenager of the roadie backstage life, man, it's such a professional industry now. And I thank God you weren't there filming me, because I don't want any record of anything that went on from at least 1980 to 1985.
Yeah. You know, I made this film starting with my friends and family and peers in the business. They trust me with the camera. I mean, I very easily could have made a really smutty film, probably made a lot of money, but I'd never be involved in the music business again. I'd lose a lot of friends. And that's not what this was about. So I got the trust of my friends and family on the road. And they introduced me to other people and more professional techs and roadies and tour managers and people in the business that evolved to getting to the level and the access that I did. So without that, I don't think I could have made this film, because nobody really wants to hear just my story about me being a punk kid from Jersey, carrying, cabinets up, drinking beer, and then getting clean on the road. And then, trying to tell my story. It's not that interesting, but the whole encompassing roadie profession, I think people are interested in.
Yeah, because I don't think a lot of people even really know what that entails. I think, as Eddie Trunk put it, they're like the most important people to make the show go down.
Yeah. And that was part of my goal when I set out to do this, is to really paint a picture. So when people pay that money, 100, 200, and even at festivals now where it could be over thousands of dollars to go see a show, they would have a little better understanding that, it's just not the band making millions of dollars. It's the production aspect of it. And these guys are true professionals that earn their pay, every single show. These tours start months and months before the first concert, per se, in a venue or at a theater. And, they're leaving their families and wives and everything way earlier than the first show. So it's a profession that's not for everybody. And I wanted to give them accolades and humanize the profession as well.
And I love that, because it is a profession. It's a lot of hard work without a lot of accolades. And nowadays, thank God it's professional, because what went on way back in the 80s probably wouldn't survive today, because there's no record labels just throwing like millions of dollars at these bands to go party, nowadays. So it's like it really did change the image of the music and the industry. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's another reason that I wanted to tell my story of getting clean and getting sober on the road. A lot of these guys that have great stories and did battle some demons on the road, they're still in the business. They're still working. So to come out and say that, it might have tainted some of their future work, right? So I kept it as professional as I can with those people, and I'm not afraid to tell my story. It's just part of my life now, and I hope through this film it would paint a picture of the music industry, but also people that might be struggling about recovering and overdoing it, whether in the music business or not. I hope that maybe I could help them a little bit as well.
That's amazing. And as we can see in my background here, you have received not only, mentions of awards, but actually won awards, and there's quite a few. So that's pretty amazing. How did that feel?
Yeah, no, it was great. So a lot of those awards and festivals were for the trailer also. So the very first trailer that we did, it was kind of a mix between the unscripted series that I was producing and the film and the interviews. We just threw all this stuff together. So I was trying to get some financial help right in the beginning.
Right.
And it just took off, and it was well received. And, after you get a couple of mentions in film festivals or screenings, I started getting the calls, and then it was, okay, I got to finish this film. People really want to see what's going on. And it was released about 5 years ago. We debuted it at the Garden State Film Festival in Asbury Park, and it won for Best Documentary, Homegrown, from a Jersey filmmaker. And from there, I just entered it in a couple of more, again, with the idea of trying to get it noticed, because what I really wanted this film to be was the pilot episode for a recurring series.
I love it.
To continue to follow these guys on the road, because it's really interesting, and it's pretty easy to do from a music guy making a series or a TV show, in the Hollywood scene, as opposed to a Hollywood guy jumping into the music scene. It's always a difficult thing to take direction from.
Hey, listen, it's no different than like when I do all these festivals and I hear other press people there that I can totally tell are not metalheads when they're interviewing metal bands. And I'm like, man, if I were to band right now, I'd want to slit my throat.
Yeah. They know nothing about the band. They're just there. They got the free pass for the weekend and they're just kind of hanging out. Yeah. I'm with you on that. That's frustrating.
Right. Especially in this genre, because like it's a passion. We're a family. Like I love when people say to me, okay, I'm 58 years old. And when people say to me, I used to like metal, I'm like, then you didn't like metal. Like metal's not something you used to like. It's a thing that's in you that never leaves you no matter where you head in life.
That's true. That's true. And the same thing with punk rockers and hardcore kids and all that stuff. It's in your blood.
No doubt. And that's another thing too. What I am really happy about today is I was a long hair in the 80s that wanted to go to punk shows and couldn't because you'd get your ass beat. Just that, and it's funny because like a couple years ago at Hellfest, I was interviewing Discharge. And like, I loved you guys my whole life. And this is the first time I got to be in one of your pits, Yeah. Because you just couldn't do that then. So I love how it's come like this. The way I always thought it was stupid back then because the metalheads and the punks, at least in LA, were always getting, picked on and bullied and beat up at school, but yet we were against each other. We should have banded together. And it's the same similar attitude, type of music. So I love that here in 2025, we're all one big happy family, whether you're hardcore, punk, metal, doesn't matter.
Yeah. And I think you see that at a lot of the festivals. I remember in 1999, I was with Agnostic Front, and we were playing the smaller stages. But Eminem was on that year. Black Eyed Peas, the eclectic mix of music, to cross pollinate different genres was amazing. And I think that Mr. Lyman did an amazing job in those early years of really getting the youth and the kids involved in the skateboards and all that stuff with. And crossing over to different types of music for these kids, it was brilliant. And like you said, fast forward 2025, the music really keeps a lot of us together, and people really drop a lot of the bullshit when it comes to seeing a band. Right, it brings us all together.
No doubt. It's so funny. Like just a few days ago, Bonnaroo promoters sent me, stuff for covering it and the lineup, and I'm looking at the lineup, and I don't do Bonnaroo because not my I won't interview bands that I don't like. Okay, right. That's just dumb. My job is to promote it. If I don't like it, I can't promote it. So I looked on I looked at the list. Megadeth. I'm like, Megadeth at Bonnaroo. That says it all right there. That's
great. That's great.
I mean, you would never imagine. And, all the Danny Wimmer festivals here is masterfully combining genres and putting bands together. And then you go to these festivals and there's 100,000 people and nobody's an outsider. We're all one big family. And it doesn't matter what we like.
Absolutely. And that's the same thing with the road crews too. A lot of these guys will bounce around from jazz to some R&B and work for many different bands. And that another thing too, that just keeps us all together as one family. There's never a broken bond when it comes to music.
So tell everybody how they can reach out to the website, socials, where they can watch the documentary, all that good stuff. It's pretty much on everywhere you can watch it.
Yeah, it pretty much is these days. Roadiefilm.com is the website. That'll link you to all the avenues of where you can watch it. Facebook and Instagram is Roadie Film. And Amazon, the easiest way to see it right now is on Amazon Freebie.
Nice. What would you say is your favorite piece of feedback that you got from somebody on this documentary?
Wow, that's an interesting question because
Right?
I do get a lot of feedback. Very rarely do I get something negative. I did get
That's shocking in 2025 to tell
Well,
you the truth. That
yeah,
says a
well,
lot
listen,
about how great it is.
yeah, I wanted to be honest with myself and with the profession. And again, I said in the movie, I did it for a long time, but I did it part-time. There's guys that spent their whole life out there. Those are the guys that really deserve it. But
Yeah.
those guys that I think maybe could have made a better movie and maybe told some things that I missed can't do what I did because they're out working. Right. So I got the thank yous from a lot of peers in the industry, other roadies and techs that said, thank you for giving us a light because I can't do it. I have to work. Right. Their tours are 10, 11 months a year. They go home and they want to just focus on the family when they're home. So they don't have the time. So I think the best, reward that I got for making this film was just that of other, real professional roadies and techs thanking me for what I was doing, which, I still get goosebumps to this day with some of these guys who were my idols as a roadie, thanking me. So that was pretty cool.
See, I love it. I was getting goosebumps just hearing you say it. So
Yeah.
I love that. What would you say? Is there any story, good or bad, crazy or not, that sticks out in your mind most of your whole life in this music area?
There's so many. It's so
I know,
great.
right?
I'm so blessed and fortunate to have experienced what I've experienced. So I started in like the big hair. I worked for a band, they were called American Angel. They started about the same time Skid Row did, and they were neck and neck for a long time. And then, the story, Skid Row, Doc McGee, and they blew up, and American Angel stayed in New Jersey. And then that kind of imploded. So I saw the 80s big hair bands. Then I went to work for MOD and Billy Milano, right over to that kind of metalcore. You don't have to say anything more. Billy Milano.
Right.
He was managing Agnostic Front. So then I got to go work in the hardcore scene. So I was at CBGB's and the Wetlands and all the Lower East Side clubs, and then right to the festivals in Europe. And I got a whole movie of Stigma stories. I could tell you stories about Vinny Stigma. And then I got working for Skid Row in 99. They were another band at the time. And then Snake, Rachel, and Scotty and got a drummer and Johnny Solinger, and we were the opening slot on the Kiss tour in 2000. So I went right to Arena Rock. So that chapter has a bunch of stories, and a lot of that I was drinking and drugging during a lot of those years. I did a lot of it sober, so it was back and forth. So every tour, every venue, every different parts of the world that I've been to has a great story.
Yeah.
So I'm just so blessed and fortunate that I got to travel the world. I guess I got paid because I did bring some money home, but it was nothing. I didn't even care about the money as much as I wanted to just be out there and experience life on the road with a band.
Yeah. It's not cut out for everybody, but for the people it is cut out for, it's freaking amazing. Like my youngest daughter, I'll bring her sometimes to festivals, and after the first day, halfway through the first day, she'll be like, Dad, I don't know how you do this every weekend. I'm done. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know how I don't. It's like right now, I'm about to go out and do coverage on Shiprocked in a few days. But I've been in the off season, and I'm kind of like Jones, and I don't think I've left my house like most of the month because what that feels like.
Absolutely, and I'll see you on Shiprocked. I'm part of the team out there. So
yeah, Christine was telling me.
I do it every year. It keeps me engaged in the scene, and a lot of my friends that not only play on the boat but are on the same crew year after year. And towards the end of my touring career, I was working for Ignite out of Orange County, and we were planning tours around our vacation time. So it was, a festival, a couple of clubs, and then Brett would say, 2 days off in Vienna, or a day off in Paris, and we're going to the Louvre, and he worked it in where it was fun. And when you're touring with a band who is your friends, it makes it so much easier to go away for 2, 3, 4 weeks at a time. Yeah. So I was really blessed to be a part of that as well with those guys. And there's just nothing like it in the world.
Yeah, I mean, and it is important that you're friends, because like you're spending 24/7 on the road, you better be really close. Yeah,
I said in the movie, you can't be a punisher, especially on a tour bus, across America, or you go wherever, even in Europe, it's tight, close quarters, and your home is a bus, and you have to get along with people and adapt, and nobody wants to be that guy on the road. And I've spent a lot of time, interviewing different other techs and roadies, and I would sacrifice musical skill or roadie capabilities for somebody that I could really live with and get along with, that didn't, drive everybody crazy. And not only me, but the band. If you have a guy who's just doesn't get along with people and is miserable, or got problems at home or whatever, is always complaining, nobody wants that on the team, and that they got to go.
Yeah, I wouldn't want that. Not even for 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
So I have a trivia question for you.
Oh boy.
I do this a lot, and it is kind of fun. And so I'm going to use a little Jersey in it and a little music in it. So I went to this show at we used to call it the Pig Pen, but Art Stock's Playpen. Okay.
You're 35.
That's right. I lived right by there. And at the time, I didn't know what I know now, but there was this band playing there, and their name was Soft White Underbelly.
Wow.
Do you know who that band is?
I do not. There was a lot of touring bands in that time. You're like Edgar Casey was a great cover band. Xenon came out of that. So I think you're leading towards that. The name of this band was an undercover name for a major act.
You are right. And so it was their original name when they first started, and then they changed it to the name everybody knows them by. And I didn't even know. And I walked in there and I heard this song, and I'm like, oh my God. It was Blue Oyster Cult.
Oh, wow. See, I never would have guessed that.
Right?
Wow.
And then down here in South Florida, I had this girl I was dating, and there's this place down Fort Lauderdale. It's called Cheers, and they have what's called karaoke there, which is like punk metal karaoke, but they have live bands there. And so she's outside the club one night, and she calls me up, and she's like, man, there's this Maiden cover band. They sound exactly like them. And then she walked in, and she calls me back. She's like, it's fucking them.
Oh, wow.
Because Nico has a restaurant here in Boca. And so before they would go, or Iron Man would go out on tour, they would go play a show like that under some pseudonym, as you know. And it's like, this place was smaller than the Troubadour or CBGB's or L'Amour's or any of those places. And they were playing there, but you wouldn't know. You would just walk in and be like, oh my God.
That's great for the band. That's great for press. It's a nightmare for the roadie. I'll tell you that.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. And I tend to think with the bands, maybe they kind of like it because it's their only like connection back to old times, playing clubs and having that intimate thing going on.
Yeah. Motley just did those couple of days at the Whiskey, bringing it back. And I went through all the phases. So I saw the club scene. I've been in VFW halls and played for the 75 Kids, and then Lowlands in Europe, and Rock Am Ring, and all these Dynamo, the big giant festivals where it's 100,000 plus.
Yeah.
there's nothing like the intimate shows where you're
No doubt.
you're really part of the crowd, and you're getting beers thrown at you. You're that close to smell their breath, type of thing.
Yeah, totally.
Nothing like that.
So, is there anything else you want to let the viewers and listeners know before you go that we haven't covered already?
Oh, geez. I think that if you're curious about the profession, or you're not sure, or you're a little bit curious about me, go to Amazon. It's free. And after 7 minutes, if you don't want to hear my mouth, you can always just change the channel.
Let me tell you something. They're not going to change it after 7 minutes. It's an amazing documentary. And I love the inside view that you give that nobody has really given before, and giving all the important people that a voice that really don't usually have a voice. They're the behind the scenes people that make it all happen. Without them, there are no shows.
That's true. That's true. And I think there's a lot of these bands will be the first to admit that and give kudos to their crew. They work hard.
Absolutely. And that's why I thank somebody like you, because you've made it possible, and people like you have made it possible for all of us to enjoy live music. And to me, live music's the best therapy there is. And so thank God we have everybody that's involved in a live show.
Absolutely.
From wherever part they are. And thank you for making this documentary, because I got to tell you, it's amazing. And I think everybody will more appreciate all that goes into a live show and maybe stop bitching about it.
Yeah, for sure. Liz, I appreciate your time and for having me and letting me talk my shit here a little bit. Much appreciated, Piper.
Always. And I'll see you on Shiprocked.
Yes. See you in a couple next week. Wow.
Yeah. It's not even a week. Like, we're leaving this coming weekend.
Yeah, that's right. Phew, goes fast.
There
Excellent.
It is.
Thank you so much, my friend.
You got it.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to the Adventures of Pipeman on W4CY Radio.